Donald Trump's massive Bitcoin speech at the crypto summit is really taking off, where he makes it clear that the US is supposed to become the new Bitcoin superpower of the world. He also reaffirms that he wants to make the US the crypto stronghold, or rather, wants to make it the crypto capital of the world. The Bitcoin price took a dive right after this speech. In the course of the video, we also look at why the Bitcoin price is currently stagnating somewhat. He goes on to say that they are currently exploring new ways to accumulate Bitcoin for the stockpile, emphasizing that Bitcoin should never be sold, as that's a saying that's generally accepted in the Bitcoin community. We're going to check out the best moments from the speech. Howard Lutnick also spoke here, as did Scott Bessent, the finance minister, and others. We are looking at the most relevant things, because something like this has never happened before, where 30 songs in the Bitcoin and crypto scene have met here in the White House. There were very high expectations, and at first glance, the speech didn't seem all that spectacular. But if you really read between the lines, there were some major bombs dropped that we need to break down now. Let's first listen to what Donald Trump has to say, because there were definitely some super relevant points in there.
And last year, I promised to make America the Bitcoin superpower of the world and the crypto capital of the planet, and we're taking historic action to deliver on that promise, as you know, around the table. Yesterday, I signed an executive order officially creating our strategic Bitcoin reserve, and this will be a virtual Fort Knox for digital gold to be housed within the United States Treasury. That's a big thing, Scott.
So this is already pretty intense. He says here that he has clearly promised to make America the crypto capital of the world and to turn it into a Bitcoin superpower. And he says here that we are going to take historic actions to make this happen. He talks about the strategic Bitcoin reserve, mentioning that he signed the executive order. And of course, it took a bit longer and so on. But he's definitely coming across as very, very bullish. He really uses all the superlatives you can think of. And he also says that this is truly a very, very big deal that's happening right now. And he also says that this is really a very, very big deal that's happening right now. He says that they will create a virtual Fort Knox, basically building an absolute bunker to stack Bitcoin. So it's not really going to be a bunker. It's just going to be somehow, probably managed by Coinbase or something like that, or maybe it'll be multi-signature or something like that. I don't know where they store the Bitcoin, but hey, if you want to store your Bitcoin safely, I'll put a link below to a TREZOR hardware wallet, how you can easily, safely and simply protect your Bitcoin from hackers and how you can best store your Bitcoin here on a TREZOR hardware wallet. But now let's continue with his speech, because the really relevant parts are just about to come.
The federal government is already among the largest holders of Bitcoin, as you know, really one of the largest holders in the world, with as many as 200,000 Bitcoin obtained via civil law and various other forms of law, and including enforcement actions. These existing holdings will form the foundation of the new reserve. Unfortunately, in recent years, the U.S. government has foolishly sold tens of thousands of additional Bitcoin that were worth billions and billions of dollars had they not sold them, but they did sell them, mostly during the Biden administration. Not a good thing to have done. From this day on, America will follow the rule that every Bitcoin knows very well: never sell your Bitcoin. That's a little phrase that they have. I don't know if that's right or not. Who the hell knows, right? Who knows? Who knows? But so far, it's been right. And well, let's keep it that way.
So if you asked me, this was probably the most relevant part of the whole speech, because here you could really get a glimpse behind Donald Trump and understand a bit of his motivation, because he clearly said, we're taking the existing Bitcoin we have and converting it into the stockpile. So all the confiscated Bitcoin, he said, it's around. But now we really need to figure out exactly how many Bitcoin that is. And now it's getting really, really exciting, because he says here, there's a mantra in the Bitcoin space: never sell your Bitcoin. By the way, this was brought into the world by Michael Saylor, and Michael Saylor was sitting about 3 seats next to Donald Trump, and I kept watching him and so on. He wasn't really there. He was just watching. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I actually watched the whole stream. He didn't really talk either. So he just watched. But in any case, Donald Trump is talking about never selling your Bitcoin. And then comes the exciting part. He says, who the hell knows? I don't know. If this is true, if he should really buy Bitcoin, if he should really hold on to Bitcoin, or if he should sell it, or what you should do with it. Nobody knows if that's really true. So Donald Trump doesn't know it, at least not here. At least that's what you can gather from his speech. It really seems like he's not fundamentally convinced about Bitcoin. It feels more like he's just reading off a piece of paper. And Scott Bessent is the advisor here. And I feel like he has a lot of trust in Scott Bessent. He had already hinted at this in other speeches, including when he announced the executive order. And he asked again, Scott Bessent, sorry, what am I saying? I just mixed up Scott Bessent and David Sachs, sorry. Though if I just said Scott Bessent, I actually meant David Sachs. When the executive order was signed, Donald Trump also asked David Sachs if he was sure about it, and if he really believed in it, and so on. David Sachs said yes, he believes in the whole thing 100%. And it really looks like Donald Trump is just being advised here. And David Sachs just took him aside and laid it all out for him, just like Lutnick and so on. And then they just told him, hey, come on, we're doing this Bitcoin thing, and never sell your Bitcoin. Because Michael Saylor says that a lot of people are saying this. So we have to do it this way now. So that's really interesting to take away from this. But what's also true is that he says, hey, it was $1 billion mistake to sell all those Bitcoin, especially since the Biden administration sold a lot of Bitcoin. And that was really bad because now they could have had a lot more Bitcoin, but they ended up with a lot less. That's also what was said right at the beginning with the executive order, that no more Bitcoin should be sold, but that the Bitcoin will really be held long term now. And that is also what happened with the Loomis bill, for example, was that you have to hold the Bitcoin for at least 20 years, because it has been proven over time that if you hold the Bitcoin for at least 4 years, you are usually in the black, or 4.5 years, to be honest. That is a very exciting discovery. But I mean, most people have somehow suspected or known this all along. And if you didn't believe that Donald Trump actually has no clue about Bitcoin, this just confirms even more that he really doesn't have a clue about it. There were no unexpected announcements or anything like that in the speech, for example. Someone said, okay, we're buying. I don't know. Let's just grab 1 million Bitcoin or something. But we'll get to the Bitcoin purchases later. We're about to dive into that because he also said some interesting things about trying to find new ways. By the way, I was just out shopping, so let me know in the comments if you'd rather go for a papaya, a honeydew melon, a coconut, or a cucumber. Drop your thoughts in the comments.
The Treasury and Commerce Departments will also explore new pathways to accumulate additional Bitcoin holdings for the reserve, provided it's done at no cost to the taxpayers. We don't want any cost to the taxpayers. In addition, my order directs federal agencies to conduct an inventory of all crypto assets currently held by the U.S. government and determine how they can be transferred easily to the Treasury.
This is now a highly relevant part where you say, hey, we're not buying new Bitcoin right now, but we're evaluating new methods to buy Bitcoin here. So we're trying to figure out ways to generate methods for accumulating new Bitcoin here in a tax-neutral way, meaning without the taxpayer having to pay anything. That means without increasing the deficit here. And there was actually a very interesting interview with David Sachs, who was also in the live interview. They asked, hey, what options are out there? Then the reporter asked him, hey, what if you could save your deficit through the Department of Government Efficiency and through the deficit savings? The money that can be freed up can be accumulated in Bitcoin. Then he says, yes, that might be worth considering, and that could definitely be done. So, if the Department of Government Efficiency saves money here, they could theoretically put the surplus into Bitcoin. And he also said that there will probably be other creative ways in the future of how we can. And we'll find ways to accumulate Bitcoin here too. So, this is what I already mentioned in the last video, that most people underestimate what's really happening here, because I genuinely believe that the US will buy Bitcoin in the future, and you just have to find the right ways. So, it doesn't look like they're saying, no, we'll never buy Bitcoin. Instead, it looks more like this. Yeah, give us a little more time, maybe a few months, maybe a year or so we can develop the right strategies here. And then we will also buy Bitcoin here. So that sounds more like what I'm thinking. But feel free to write in the comments how you feel about this. And now let's take a look at the speech by Scott Bessent. So that was kind of a roundtable. And then other people should get a chance to speak too. So first, the people close to Donald Trump will get to speak. And then there are a few others afterwards. For example, the Winklevoss brothers and so on. Michael Saylor, as I said, actually, I don't think he spoke from what I saw. But check out what the Secretary of Commerce has to say.
President Trump has signed the executive order to establish the strategic Bitcoin reserve and stockpile. We're going to position the United States as a leader among nations in the digital asset strategy. It's important for the United States to recognize this fact and get ahead of the other nations in the digital age. We applaud the President's direction to use the digital assets already in possession of the nation, and we are going to establish this Bitcoin reserve. We will use this authority to augment the assets side of the United States balance sheet. As I've said many times, President Trump is creating assets for the American people, while most past presidents have created debt, and a large part of this asset program can be in digital assets.
And this is really a very important point that most people have overlooked. Because if we take a look at this, what Donald Trump is doing is truly historic. Because, as Scott Besson says here, most presidents have simply passed on debt. And Donald Trump wants to create assets on multiple levels here. So once, here with the stockpile, then the next is with the Southern Wealth Fund. And here, let's say, generational wealth or assets are to be generated that can be held onto for 20 or 30 years. And then they just keep increasing in value, kind of like Fort Knox, where they keep the gold reserves, if they still have them. I don't know if they still exist or not, and that's something really, really special. And other countries could really take a page out of this book. Because it's somehow global. Everyone is just focused on piling up more debt, finding new ways to create special funds, trying to game the state budget, and so on. And Donald Trump is taking a different approach here. He wants to cut spending with the Department of Government Efficiency. And on the other hand, he wants to generate assets. And Bitcoin is probably the best attempt to build a stockpile, because Bitcoin is the best store of value we currently have. But I almost forgot, Donald Trump made another point here that's also highly relevant, especially when it comes to global conflicts, particularly with China.
Thank you very much. I thought it was very important that we stay in the front of this one. This is a big one. And as you know, China is pushing forward and very strongly as usual. But we're way in the lead, as we are in AI and other things, and we want to stay there.
So here he's basically confirming the nation-state FOMO that's slowly starting to kick in. He says, quite clearly, there are competitors like China, who are also way ahead with AI and so on, who are also way ahead with Bitcoin. And if you want to be the leader that Donald Trump says you are, you definitely have to step up your game. And that's exactly why I say that they will buy Bitcoin here. Because if he says that he is afraid of China and says, hey, we want to stay the leader and so on, and if there are any concerns about that, then you also have to build up the stack here. Because if you don't build up the stack, then China will eventually overtake you. And now we have Howard Lutnick here, the Secretary of Commerce, who says that he himself has several $100 million in Bitcoin.
Technology is at the foundation of the Trump presidency. He understands technology, he embraces technology, and he's going to use technology to drive America forward. The blockchain and Bitcoin technology are a key part of that thinking, and embracing that, and here today shows how much a leader the Trump administration and our president is. He understands it. He embraces it. As you said, you're a pioneer in this place, and this is where we're going. We're using the blockchain, we're using Bitcoin, we're going to use digital assets to pound forward, and Donald Trump is leading the way. Can't be more proud of you today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Howard.
Donald Trump is open here, with Bitcoin, with blockchain, with thanks, and that could become a very interesting combination. He also says that Donald Trump gets all of this. So Donald Trump would understand Bitcoin here. He would get the technology. As I said, I'm not entirely sure whether Donald Trump really understands Bitcoin in depth. Of course, he will. Perhaps understand the basics here so that he can. Perhaps reduce the deficit that the dollar can. Perhaps be strengthened that it may be a good idea to build up assets there. So he gets the basic dynamics. But I just can't picture him understanding proof of work or really grasping the details of Bitcoin or anything like that. Because that's what Howard Ludwig is saying here, that he would understand Bitcoin and the technology. We saw earlier that he doesn't really get it, because otherwise he wouldn't have asked a question like that, like whether you should sell Bitcoin or not, or where does that saying come from? Is it really true that you should never sell Bitcoin? So he kind of gave himself away there. But hey, overall it was a really interesting event, even though we missed the ultimate new announcements or something like that. I mean, the Bitcoin price did drop a bit afterward because people were maybe a little disappointed that there wasn't this ultra giga announcement or something like that. We've seen several times that we had rumor selling news events. But hey, if you want to get in on this too, I'll drop a link for you down below. 21 Bitcoin, how you can easily, safely, and simply buy Bitcoin. Here, with the code, you can still get up to 20% off fees when buying Bitcoin. Here, you can easily build a personal stockpile for yourself, so you don't have to wait for Donald Trump or anything like that. Let me know in the comments what you think about the whole story. I just wanted to say to the shit show, peace out.